All right, welcome everyone. We are ready to get started. So thank you for joining us. We are very excited to have a joint conversation with Chad of Skubana. We're going to be talking about something near and dear to all of our hearts, how to pump up your profits, specifically on Amazon and utilizing their FBA. I know this is a very contentious topic around different e-commerce groups, and we're hoping to shed some light on how to automate this process and how to make sure that you're getting the most out of your business by someone who's been there and done that. So before we jump into anything, a little housekeeping. Want to make sure that everyone recognizes they're set on mute. We do want to engage in conversation though, so please submit questions via the question box. And based on the volume, we're going to get to as many of them as we can, but never fear. If we miss one, we will follow up directly after the webinar. And on that note, we'll be sending out an email recording to all of the webinar attendees. So as you're joining along, ask those questions in the question box, and then join us also on Twitter with the hashtag #PumpUpProfits. Now, what we're going to be covering, we're going to do a little bit of introduction, make sure that you know who Webgility and Skubana are. We're the people hosting the webinar, in case you forgot. And then we're going to dive into the essential e-commerce tech stack and get into the meat and potatoes about how to outsource and automate your Amazon and FBA business to drive high profitability. And of course, we're going to save some time in the end for questions that have not been answered, and we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So we'll dive right in. First things first, I'm Rob McGroarty. Hello. I lead the product team here at Webgility, and I'm joined by Chad Rubin, the CEO and co-founder of Skubana.
Hey Rob, thanks for having me.
Of course. We're excited to hear all of your nuggets of knowledge.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. A little bit about Webgility. We are the system that connects multi-channel e-commerce businesses, the stores, the inventory, shipping, and make sure that all of that flows smoothly into the accounting system so that you have accurate financials, you can get back to doing other parts of the business that you like a little bit more, and you can understand what's going on from a financial perspective so that you can start making some of the tweaks that will increase your profitability. We are part of what we call the essential e-commerce tech stack, and that's a pretty simple concept, but one that we want to cover here, that obviously as an e-commerce merchant, you're going to have several different tools that make you successful. They generally fall in different categories. Things like stores and marketplaces where you drive those sales and you get customers to come and buy your awesome widgets. You have things like inventory management and operational back-end tools like Skubana. And then obviously as you sell these items, you got to make sure they get to your customers. So there's a shipping element, things like FedEx and UPS or USPS directly as the carriers, or some shipping tools as well. Obviously you have to understand what's going on with your business, so there's an accounting aspect, QuickBooks, Xero, NetSuite, choose your pick. And of course, for those of you who have recurring customers, which is the ideal for most e-commerce sellers, there's an aspect of CRM that can be done through tools like Bronto, Salesforce, and Fusionsoft. And then of course, we fit into a cross between all of these sections where we want to make sure that we're integrating and automating a lot of your business. So this is how we view the industry and how we view the tech stack. We're going to dive into a couple specific pieces here. But first, I want to give Chad a couple minutes to chat about Skubana and what it's all about.
Sure, I'll just start with my background. Hi everybody, thanks for taking time out of your day, an hour out of your day to join this webinar. So my name is Chad Rubin. I run an e-commerce business called Crucial Vacuum, top 500 Amazon seller. I'm selling about 20 different channels, have about 3,000 listings across those channels. And out of a pain of running that business and doing about 60,000 orders a month, I couldn't find the right software to sort of run, manage, operate, and automate my business. So I started Skubana. I just solved my own problem, and we built it for every other seller out there that has those same problems as a multi-marketplace, high-volume seller. I also wrote a book, Cheaper, Easier, Direct. Of course, you can find it on Amazon if you're interested. So I'm very, very involved in the e-commerce game. And so, like this slide says, Skubana is just everything after the checkout to run your entire business. So orders, advanced orders, order management, inventory management, FBA, profitability, which we'll get into in a little bit, some serious analytics, all on the cloud with one-click integrations.
Awesome. We're very excited to hear. Obviously, you've had a lot of success on Amazon, which drove your need to create Skubana. So a very knowledgeable host here. We're excited. So we're going to jump into our first poll question just to get a baseline from everyone here on the line. We're trying to understand how you calculate your Amazon FBA profitability today. There's a couple of options. The most likely one, be my guess, is I've never calculated it. That's why you're here. But for those of you who are ahead of the curve and are looking for those deeper tactics, we've got the Amazon FBA calculator that's built in, some separate software that factors in all of your different channels, potentially the manual spreadsheet option, which seems to be a perennial favorite, and something else. We'll probably follow up to figure out what that something else is. So far, poll's still in progress, but we're seeing a big lead with the never calculated it. So good news, you're in the right place. And then a pretty even split between the FBA calculator and some other software, with a strong second place coming up as the manual spreadsheets.
Wow.
And
okay.
With the poll closed, yeah, these are our results. Chad, what are your thoughts?
I'm not surprised. You know, when you go to Seller Central, Amazon really wants you to believe that you're making whatever they settle into your bank statement, and that's like the end-all be-all. They care about what you're making, but a lot of sellers are missing about what they keep at the end of the day, and that's why they're on the call today.
That's an excellent point. All right.
What do you think? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Rob?
I mean, that really didn't surprise me. I would assume that most people are somewhere between the never calculated it and they're trying to figure out to make heads or tails of their Amazon profit, or they're doing it the hard way through the spreadsheet. We see that all the time. We're one of the companies that tries to take a very deep, interested look at how Amazon charges and what it charges for, and how to make sure that that's clear and usable in a financial aspect. So not surprising at all. All right, we're going to kick it off. This is obviously a lot of hard-won learnings for you, Chad. We appreciate you sharing as much as you can, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, again, this presentation for me, if you're taking an hour out of your schedule, I want everyone to pump up their profits. That's the name of the presentation. And the way that I've pumped up my profits has been both outsourcing and automating my business. So first we focus on automation with technology, and then we focus on outsourcing what you can accomplish with technology to those that actually do it best.
Excellent.
So I'm going to move to, let's see, I'm controlling the slide. Okay, so background on myself, I have a $7 million business with 2 employees, top 500 Amazon seller. I'm also on the top on Walmart as well, so I sell on 20 different channels. A couple of them would be Amazon, all the FBA, eBay, Rakuten, Sears, Newegg, Walmart, Jet.com, Overstock, Wayfair, Groupon, to name a few. And in order to actually to run a business at that large scale with 2 employees, you need to have a system in place. The system is probably one of the most important things in your business. You have to be a systems thinker. And so as we progress through this presentation, I'm going to give everybody that's joining today the complete outline of every single tool that I use to run my business, and I'll share it on one awesome slide. So stay tuned for that. It's coming right up.
While we go through that, don't worry about taking screenshots. It will be sent out along with the recording.
Cool. So I'm trying to move this slide. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So how do you pump up your profits? A lot of people in the e-commerce world think, it's about working harder. If I just work harder in my business, I'll be making more money. And I think working hard and making more money are actually, they don't go hand in hand all the time. So what I want to talk about is how you can be working smarter so you can actually be making more on the bottom line and put more food on your table. So like I talked about before, you want to be a systems thinker. That is the way that I believe that sellers are going to win in 2017 and beyond. The next 2, 3, 4 years, if you're not building a system around your business, you're going to fail to actually execute and win over your competitors. So you need to start substituting a lot of that manual labor and what you're doing and thinking about technology, what you can do to automate your business to actually win in this environment.
And yeah, that's a good point. This is a conversation that happens a lot in general management theory, but I think it applies even more effectively in something like e-commerce, where so much of the business is already digitized and it's already running on a system of some sort. Would you agree that this is more applicable here, or do you think that it's pretty standard across all different business types?
I mean, I think it's any business needs to have a system. Like if you go to McDonald's, right, they know exactly how to make your burger, no matter if you go to McDonald's in Kentucky or you're going to McDonald's in New York City. So everything is standardized, and I think a lot of e-commerce sellers, especially those that began selling on Amazon, started building these empires built on sand, and now need to start taking their business to the next level. Like one of the biggest mistakes I made was I thought I can just work harder, hire more warehouse employees, and I was going to make more money, but that wasn't. I hit a wall. And so I actually started outsourcing my warehouse, which is one, just personal shares. I started to outsource my warehouse and find others that can do what I do better. So whether it's finding technology, which is what we're about to talk about, and then finding an outsourced army, essentially, to do what you need to do to accomplish and get you to your goals at the end of the day.
Right on. I'm excited to dive into some of the details.
And of course, I want this to be interactive, so if people want to sort of chat in the chat box, if they have questions during this conversation, in this webinar, please feel free to drop a line in the chat box. And Rob, if you can take a look at the chat box, let me know if there's questions. Interrupt me, feel free. If you have things to shed light on, please, I want you to add as much value as possible.
You got it.
So we have two parts of this webinar. One is automate, one is outsource. In order to win in e-commerce today and in the future, these are the two levers that you have at your disposal to win. Now, the output of this is profits and time. Now, typically when I get 100 Amazon sellers or e-commerce sellers in a room, most of the time, if we give them back more time, they fill it with ways that they can be making more money. So we're going to focus this presentation entirely around how you can drive more profit out of your business. Now, the first thing you need to do before you start thinking about outsourcing is you need to think about what are ways that you can automate parts of your business, that you can let technology take over instead of having to do the manual, repetitive tasks. So we're going to focus on automation, and we want to use technology to automate the most mundane, repetitive tasks in commerce. Like I said, low value, repetitive activities that can replace human labor, so that you can now repurpose your employees, especially your key employees, on doing higher value activities. Was there a question there, Rob?
Yeah, right before we jump in here, there was a question from Derek that asked why support Amazon, and I assume that is a reference to the empire built on sand, and just in general, why even begin to sell on Amazon?
Well, selling on Amazon is like a gateway drug. It's easy to get started, and it's super hard to ever leave once you've gotten started. And a lot of sellers that I talk to just happen to just start selling on Amazon. And so number one, they never leave the Amazon environment because it's all too easy. They don't have to worry about SEO. They don't have to worry about selling on other channels. They don't even have to worry about tech stack because they have Seller Central as this sort of comfort blanket around them. But when I talk about expanding and scaling, I really want people to start thinking beyond just Amazon. Just look at Amazon as a channel and get the right technology infrastructure that you can build up so that you can actually start selling on 20 different channels, because you want to be everywhere in e-commerce to win. It's like playing Monopoly, Rob. You want to be on every piece of the board. You want to own the railroad. You want to own the utility. You want to own Park Avenue. So just because you're on Amazon, you're actually losing if you're not selling elsewhere.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And obviously, like you said, it's sort of a gateway drug. We look at it in a lot of ways as a fire hose that a ton of people can sip from, and it gets you that instant gratification, but it's definitely costly. At minimum, most times it's 15%, as Derek pointed out as well. So excited to see how we can make that more profitable and then how we can build out the operation that helps you expand to other channels.
For sure. So if we go to the next slide, which I think is one of the meatiest slides of this presentation, this is every tool that I use and every technology that I use to run my business. So when I was putting this slide together, I was thinking about what are tools that automate things for me and what are tools that allow me to delegate. Delegation is very important when we're talking about outsourcing, which is coming up. But the first part is actually what can you automate with your technology. So I started thinking, okay, what are technologies here that automate things for me? And so the first one that you'll see is something called Boomerang. I use Gmail. I'm an avid user of Gmail. I love it. I use it both for the business and personal. But Gmail does two things for me. Number one, if I send an email and I don't hear back from that person, it actually bounces back and boomerangs back into my box so that it takes off the cognitive processing power of having to constantly think, hey, did that person get back to me? Why haven't they responded yet? So it allows you to actually set it and forget it so that email can come back. The second thing that Boomerang does for me is it allows me to send an email into the future. So if I want to send an email thanking everyone for this presentation for joining, I can actually set it up so that it goes out, I don't know, on Friday in the afternoon, thanking everybody.
That's an excellent point. I personally get stuck in my inbox quite a bit, so I use Boomerang, but probably not as effectively as I should.
Yeah, interesting. I use this other tool to analyze my inbox called Gmail, I think it's Gmail Meter. It's called Gmail Meter. And you connect it to your Gmail, and it'll analyze who are your biggest correspondents with you. How many emails do you get a month? Because I think a lot of people take for granted that people gift their time through email, and you can never get that time back. So what if you were able to minimize those emails that come in? And so I'll take my top 10 people that correspond with me in Gmail, and I'll actually move them to Slack. If you look at Slack, Slack is on this list right at the top there.
Yep.
So Slack is something that I use for internal communication. So instead of having employees communicating with me on a daily basis, I'll actually use Slack for those internal communications and minimize the amount of email flow that I have coming in.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And then obviously as we save time in the day-to-day work, we're able to focus a bit more on the business side of things, which I assume is most of the rest of this graph here.
Yeah, so like just another example. So we built Skubana with the idea that we wanted to automate, instead of having to mine your data and figure out what you need to purchase, why not have Skubana remove those questions from your behavior? You never have to ask again, how many do I need to order? When do I have to order them? Skubana will automatically create a purchase order awaiting your approval with a nice little bow on top. So it becomes this like 24/7, 365 employee.
Yep.
And once you use that kind of automation, you now can have your tasks like your high-value tasks, being performed by individuals in the organization that are doing higher value, like profit analysis, or maybe moving into more SKUs, or maybe creating more unique content on other channels so that you can actually have much more market share in your distribution.
Yep.
And of course, you're seeing here that I'm using Webgility. Rob, if you want to give a shout out to how Webgility is automating for me, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you pointed out, Skubana does a lot of the back operations, things like the purchase order, inventory management, centralizing a lot of data from different channels. But what it doesn't do quite as well, and where Webgility jumps in, is to help translate that into financial data that makes sense to an accounting system. So we're plugging in to help suck all that information out and translate it into something that an accountant would produce inside of QuickBooks. And that just automates yet one more step in understanding the business, getting compliant, and you can move your accountant into higher value actions like analyzing your P&L, making sure that you're taking advantage of any cash flow inefficiencies or efficiencies. So there's a lot of benefit there to getting the first level of integration and data transfer taken care of.
In the customer satisfaction quadrant right here, you'll see Returnly. This is another app that I use to automate returns. Instead of having my customer support team have to talk to every customer and see what needs to be returned, we try to automate that process and allow them to process their own return label.
That's awesome.
It's like parking on the street. You can either go and put in money in each meter, or you can just go to one central muni meter, right, to pay. And so we're now taking the work of us having to go to each meter, and we have our customers go to one place. We force them to kind of do the work, and they're happy to do it because they want that return.
Right. Then they also think about it as, oh, great, I can make some I can achieve something on my own. I don't need to go through, one of Skubana's employees and try to convince them that it's the right time for a return. So I think there's a double benefit to that.
Yep. So we can go on for hours on this, but I think this is a really interesting technology stack that I want to share with everyone that's joining the call today.
Definitely. And if there are questions about anything specific on here or how it's utilized, go ahead and ask them. But we'll continue on with the rest of the process.
Cool. So one of the other things.
Slide.
What was that?
I said this is a scary slide.
This is a scary slide, and I think a lot of people, not enough people, are thinking about the fees that are associated with selling on Amazon, because again, they only see their settlement that gets dropped into. They go into their Seller Central dashboard, then they look at the settlements that then their bookkeeper then brings into QuickBooks, and they think that's what they're making. And so there's a massive difference between what you're making and what you're keeping on Amazon, and so you need to have a system. And Skubana does this on a SKU by SKU level. I know Webgility does this on a macro level for the P&L. But there's the pick fee, the pack fee, the storage fee, the return fee, the removal fee, all these fees that are associated, especially if you're selling FBA, that we're not paying enough attention to as sellers. So instead of having to use, I know one of the poll question when we first started was, are you paying attention to these fees? And a lot of people said they're not, and a lot of people said that they're using spreadsheets. And so what if you can actually stop thinking about those spreadsheets and compiling those spreadsheets, and then start working on sort of pruning what you're selling. So here's a screenshot from Skubana, and if you look here, we actually have a whole, the technology does the work for you. So we will categorize like a stock portfolio, all your SKUs, and you can then sort what's making you the most money, and maybe you want to redeploy more dollars in those areas, and where am I losing money? And it's no shocker that a lot of people think that they're making money on all these SKUs, and then they start using Skubana, and they're like, oh my gosh, I am actually losing so much money on these SKUs.
Yep, and it's important too. I think you have that gross margin column is the total of all of that. A small loss on an individual item may not seem like much to pay attention to, but if that's your highest selling item, now you're just driving your business further and further into the ground.
We had a top 46 Amazon seller come in, and they put in all their information into Skubana, and they realized with their hero SKU, they sell supplements, they were losing $44,000 in the 30-day period.
Wow. That
so
was
based on that, that's a revelation right there.
That's awesome.
So it allows you to prioritize and redeploy your team's energy and their time and focusing on what's going to make us the most money. And it's not just that this is a one-trick pony. This is not just an Amazon platform. This is a platform that you can do it across your entire business. Because when you invest in technology, you need to make sure you're investing for the future. It is an investment. And Absolutely. So we will do this not only on FBA, on Amazon CA, in UK, in Germany. We'll do it on Walmart. We'll do it on Shopify. We'll get as circle as every single cost in your system.
Now, just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, are these going to be similar things to be taking a look at if you're using another outsourced warehouse, or is Amazon a whole different beast?
So Amazon has these fees, like we showed before on the previous slide. And Yep. So we'll pull in your pick fee, your pack fee, your storage fee, your long-term fee, your return fee. If you have other fees, like you're using an outsourced warehouse, we have this little button on the right-hand side here at the top called Edit Overhead Costs. And you can put in your overhead costs, and now you can see your profitability, your operating profit. It's your net of your net of your net. It is the holy grail of what any e-commerce merchant wants to see, with all those costs divvied up across their entire portfolio.
Awesome.
And this is not easy. You're aware of this too, because you guys do this on a QuickBooks level. This
Yep.
is not easy stuff to pull. Like, you have to go through thousands of line items, and if you're doing this manually, you are just straight up wasting your time.
Yes, which goes to that 25% of people who said they were analyzing on spreadsheets. Keep note.
Yep. So this is automation without human intervention.
Yep.
So is there any questions that came up in the chat box at all, or are we just keeping calm and carrying on?
Nothing else. I've been asking them as they come in.
Cool. So now we're talking about outsourcing. So you cannot outsource an inefficient task, so it's important that your process is really, really spot on. Your own life is spot on. So the next slide you'll see, when I talk to most sellers and we talk about outsourcing, most of them are like gung-ho and they want to get a ton more stuff done. But the key is, it's not about getting more stuff done, it's about getting your own stuff done. What are things in your own life that are impediments to you actually achieving your goals? So what I do, and how I started my own process of outsourcing, was I started creating lists. What are things that I really like doing? What are things that I can't stand doing? What are things that I maybe shouldn't be doing that I'm doing? And just having a no list. Like, we all have to-do lists. You need to start having a don't-do list. And so I want everyone to just take a pause and maybe think about, after this webinar, creating a calendar of where you're spending your time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I constantly struggle with that because it seems like at the end of the week you've been doing a lot of stuff and you're busy, but you still don't make headway. So there's a lot of stuff that should be eliminated from our daily lives.
Yeah, I think that you use a good word, busy. And I think a lot of people mistaken being busy or having an activity, confusing activity and accomplishments.
Yep.
So just something to think about as we're progressing, and just saying no to different things in your life. So as we move on, in terms of getting things off of your plate, once your life is optimized and you start to think about where you're spending your time, then you start to think about what are things you don't like doing or you shouldn't be doing, and that's where outsourcing comes in, so that you can get more done. Then you can work on getting more stuff done for your employees and for your company, but let's focus on you right now. So here is where I typically find my virtual assistants, and I use very heavy Upwork.
Yep.
Rob, have you heard of Upwork before?
I have definitely. I've had a couple tasks through there. Obviously, there's a ton of people on there, but to me, the hardest part is filtering out who's going to be a quality assistant or a quality task person, and then getting them up and started. I think that's, for me at least, and for everybody I talk to that doesn't use virtual assistants or outsource work, it's that first the vetting, which is probably accomplishable, but it's really getting people up to speed so they do things the way that you're looking to have them done and really start saving time.
Yeah, we're going to go into that pretty heavy.
Awesome.
So I use Upwork, and I typically am finding my assistants, they're located in a different country, mainly in the Philippines. One of the reasons why I look to the Philippines, and you can find people on Upwork that are from any country, but I look at the Philippines because it's very cost effective, but also the individuals that I'm hiring have what I call HLR, hustle, loyalty, and respect. And I'm looking for people that are self-starters, and then I'm looking for English neutrality. So one of the things with Philippines is that the United States, used to actually own the Philippines, I believe in the 1930s.
Yep.
Mid-1930s. And so there is a similar culture that they share with us. So I look for people that are English speaking and have accent neutrality. I look for people that are organized, that certainly have great communication. And you talked a little bit about vetting process. On Upwork, it's such a large community that you can actually analyze and see the reviews of the individuals that you want to bring onto your team.
Yeah.
So I typically will filter.
Which is something that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, e-commerce sellers must be familiar with that type of ranking system, because most of our products, especially in marketplaces, are being judged by their reviews. So the good news is, it sounds like Upwork has a high enough volume where those reviews can be really indicative.
Definitely. And so I'll be able to search and prioritize and triage different candidates on Upwork based on how many reviews they have, if they're all above 90%. So I'll filter above 90% or above 80% to give me a higher pool. I also filter by the amount of hours, because you can have a 90% rating and only work 1 hour on Upwork.
Yeah.
And then I also ask for a video. So during the application process, I typically will say, hey, can you record me a 20-second video about yourself or a 30-second video? So number one, I get to see about the accent neutrality and see how their English is, if I can communicate with them, but I also get a sense of, are they creative? Are they fun? What do they like to do? Do they share a common value system with me and my company?
Yep, that's a good fit. We do have one question from Babak asking about specifically the Philippines, and this may just be different experiences, but he said that he's been outsourcing for years and he struggles to find people in the Philippines that are quite as committed as you're talking about. Oftentimes things are late or missing appointments. Have you had experience with that, or is that totally new to you?
Okay, so I'm not saying that what I'm not saying is that this is easy. What I'm trying to say is that this takes time and work to nail it and get it correct. That's part of building the system, and it actually allows you to create a competitive moat and allows your company to be in a defensive position. If you actually can create a system and successfully do it, you are set to win. So I haven't had that. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is that I don't go to Philippines. I said this very early on this call. I don't go to the Philippines because I'm cheap. I go there because it's cost effective. So I pay my staff in the Philippines a solid paycheck. So here's an example of how I treat my employees in the Philippines. So my VA, who I think is on the next slide, my GVA, my general VA, my rockstar VA, she came to me and she said, Chad, I'm having an internet issue in my complex that I live in the Philippines, and the neighborhood is getting a lot worse. And she has a daughter. She's a single mother raising her daughter, and she said the neighborhood's getting worse. And I said, well, what's keeping you from actually moving to a place that has better internet and a place that's a comfortable place for you to bring up and raise your child? And she said, well, I don't have the money. I don't have the security deposit. And I said, how much is the security deposit? She said, $1,400. I said, here's $1,400. Go get yourself a new place. She moved in last week. So when we're talking about finding the kind of staff that's going to have your back and help you win, you need to make sure that you're having your staff's back and you're helping them win too.
Yeah, that's an important point. Obviously, finding the right people, no matter what the geography, is an important part of that.
Yep. And just real quick, I know I passed this slide. I'm just going to hop back for 1 second. One of the ways that I'm screening people on Upwork is that in my post, I will essentially give them a little bit of a quiz to make sure that they've read all the way to the bottom. So in this example, the secret question to build a strong foundation, I have these people that are applying for the job to include Rockstar Assistant somewhere on the first line of their proposal. This will make sure that they're actually paying attention, they've read my proposal all the way through.
Good
but
point.
You could ask, what's your favorite ice cream? And make sure that they include that in their proposal. Now, you can ask anything you want, make it fun. This is just one example.
Yeah, just a great way to make sure they're not robo-applying to everything or just copy-pasting. You want to make sure they're actually focusing on each application.
Yeah, and that happens often. We have people that are just applying, and it's a great way for us to screen the applicants in advance before having to waste our time on those calls because they didn't even read the job post.
Absolutely.
All right. So yeah, there's my master VA. In fact, she is so important to me and my organization that I gave her a shout out in my book that I wrote, Cheaper, Easier, Direct. So I give her a shout out in the back saying like, hey, thanks so much, and you're like half my brain.
Awesome. Definitely rely on that.
So the next slide here, not only do I have this one master VA, we split up the way that we're hiring people based on tasks and roles. So if you look on the left-hand side here, the tasks, these are one-offs. These are things that are very specialized, like a bookkeeping. It's something that I outsourced probably about a year ago now. I had a bookkeeping company in the United States. I've moved I outsourced it. I saved a lot of money, but I also got it done much more efficiently and to higher standards. So bookkeeping is one. So it's very specialized. Blog writing, you need a content writer or a sponsored ad. These are one-off projects that we need to get accomplished. Create backlinks for my own shopping cart. Doing customer support.
Just to clarify in here, to understand, it sounds like bookkeeping is an ongoing thing. A/B testing might be happening pretty often. A lot of these might be recurring tasks. How do you differentiate between a task-oriented role and something that may be recurring tasks and therefore would fall into the role category?
So we'll hire a bookkeeper, and it could be recurring. It's one specialized job. That is their role. That's their task, is to be a bookkeeper. On the role side, if you have a general VA, like my VA, she can update social media. She can flag and tag my email. She can do some keyword research for me. She can actually have a conversation with Rob, organizing a webinar. She can do this PowerPoint. So she's a well-rounded individual. It's kind of like when you went to university. You can either specialize and get a bachelor's in business, or you can actually just get a well-rounded degree like an English major, a liberal arts degree.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So roles
I never thought of it that way, but it's really good.
Roles sound like things that one person will take on multiple, and tasks are you have an individual doing that one thing, and they're only dedicated to that. You won't expand them to additional activities.
Exactly.
Cool.
Like my bookkeeper, I wouldn't have go and write a blog for me. My blog writer, I wouldn't have and go and create backlinks for me.
That makes sense.
And I just want to point out that I'm located in New York, New Jersey. Our operations is in Jersey, and so trying to actually find people to hire the best talent, I get a much larger pool size. So I'm not just sort of pigeonholed into just recruiting from northern New Jersey. I can now recruit from all over the United States, all over the world.
Right.
And so here's just an example I want to share with everybody of the different roles that I'm posting on Upwork. Building an FAQ page, seeking a part-time bookkeeper, looking for an experienced VA, finding a Google AdWords master, looking for a special patent specialist, looking for someone to help us with our YouTube channel. Anything you need, right, you can find through Upwork. So it's just a great way, again, like I said, to find talent and to expand the pool of talent that you actually recruit from.
Yep. Obviously, you have a lot here. Is this a full breadth of the people that you are working with on a recurring basis, or is this just a snapshot?
This is a snapshot. Like, we are constantly growing our team. So nice. This is my outsourced army of people. There's no I in team. Like, we need everybody's help, all hands on deck to help us win.
Right on. Do you have a count of how many VAs or how many outsourced employees you've had?
So I have 2 VAs, like personal VAs, but check this out. My employees, my staff, some companies give out free lunch. Some other companies give out holistic water. We give out VAs to everybody on our team. Everybody gets a VA. And when I'm giving my employees a VA, not only does it empower them to work on things that they love, right, which will of course show up in their performance reviews, but I'm also thinking about, like, what are their weaknesses and how can their weakness just become their strength? What are things that are getting in the way of us achieving our goals as a company? And
so allows a little bit more focus, a little bit more of getting the right work done.
Getting the right work done, but also, like, if we have a team meeting and I'm like, hey guys, why has this not been done? And they say it's because I don't have the time. Time can never be a constraint or an impediment to actually the growth of our company. It's not an answer. Time. I don't have time is not even said here. It's like one of those things you just don't say. If you don't have the time, you're going to give it to a VA, or you'll get another VA, or you get a task-oriented person to do that project so that I can help elevate them and help them reach their goals.
Okay.
So the other thing I like about Upwork, and so this is a screenshot right from Upwork, is that it helps me actually find out like I'm not the guru on outsourcing, and perhaps there's other things that could be outsourcing that I'm not aware of. So if there's a topic that I find interesting, let's just say the topic is I'm really finding an interest today. I'm really thinking about Amazon wish list, and I want to see what other people, what other Amazon sellers are posting on Upwork about Amazon wish list. I can come in here in the top right-hand corner of Upwork and not just search by freelancer, but I can search by job. And now I can actually go and click into that job. Then I can read that job post. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting what they're doing. And then I can see what other jobs that Amazon seller or e-commerce seller posted and give me further ideas. I like to use Upwork as a database.
That makes a ton of sense. That's a great way to get at the inner thoughts of other e-commerce sellers without having to ask them directly. You just see what they're hiring for.
Yeah, it gives us a sense of also competitive intelligence too. Because like I've been curious about what's all the buzz about Amazon wish list, and now I can see what people are writing about and asking other outsourced freelancers to perform for them.
Yep. Which obviously means they at least theoretically are seeing a benefit to this, or it looks like a big enough opportunity for them that they're trying to employ a task person to go and execute on it, which means they might have a very well thought out system and they might be ready just to scale an angle.
Yeah, for sure. And again, this is not, outsourcing is not easy. I got it wrong the first time I've ever done it. I got it wrong. And then I actually read a book called Virtual Freedom that I highly recommend. And it helped give me the proper framework to get it right. So when we outsource, I'm talking about...
Sorry, go ahead.
What was that, Rob? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I assume that's also available on Amazon?
It is actually available on Amazon, absolutely.
Awesome.
So when we're sculpting these roles, they have to be formulaic. The roles, the responsibilities, the duties, the operational procedures, those can be documented, and creating operational documents is a great way to make it happen. And one of the other tools that were on my tech stack was I use Zoom meetings. And so what I'll do is I'll spend time training them, and Zoom records the training process of these outsourced individuals. And so I'll never have to repeat myself again. One of my pet peeves is having to repeat myself. And now I have one place where I can say, hey, you have questions, go re-watch the video where we did our training.
That's a great tip. I hate repeating myself as well. And obviously, any live interaction is going to be better than a document. So even if you're building off of a document into that training, I'm sure there are things that the next VAs or anybody else doing that task is going to pick up from the video that wouldn't be in a single document.
Yeah, because I used to have to repeat myself and have training multiple times, but this is something I learned from developers. So being lazy can become your competitive advantage. Being lazy helps you get the most work done in the most minimal amount of time, and to try to automate the process so you don't have to do it again.
Yep. I like lazy as a competitive advantage.
All right, let's see here. So I wanted to offer those that are on this call an opportunity to have a 15-minute power offer with me, to have a consulting session around automation and outsourcing. Please feel free to go to skubana.com/gold and put in the password nuggets. You can also find me across Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can email me, of course, chat@Skubana. I cannot promise that I'm going to email you directly back. Maybe it'll be my virtual assistant.
Good times. So I would highly recommend taking Chad up on this offer, but we want to take a moment to wrap up and just kind of cover the key takeaways and then hit any questions that haven't been answered yet. So from our side, the way that we looked at this, first step is to use technology, automate everything, and eliminate what could be a manual error. Right? People are good at some tasks. They're not necessarily great at repeating and getting the same results from the same type of tasks over and over. That's why there's a thing called human error. But then as soon as you get to the point of saying, all right, I've automated a bunch of this stuff, what else is it that you are not good at? Are you not effective? I like Chad's perspective on being lazy as a competitive advantage. You want to make sure that you get the most advantage out of everything you're doing and maintain the time to get good and to get those good results. So obviously automate or outsource whatever you can't done. And of course, being busy like myself is not the same as being effective like Chad. So follow Chad, be more effective, and that leads to outsourcing for virtual assistants, for specific tasks, and for specialized skills that may not be your forte. Chad, would you say that's a good summary?
I think that's a great summary. The last thing I would just add is that you want to just focus on those higher value activities. What are you going to do today that's going to help you make more money? And just think about the dollar value that your time is worth. So if you put a number to it, let's just say that number is $50. Anything under $50 should be outsourced.
Yep, that's a good bar. So I want to jump in real quick. We had a question earlier from JR, and it talked about Returnly specifically, but in the general context, they were asking what are some of the best ways to automate customer service in general. I mean, if Returnly is the best, that's great, but it seemed like you had a lot of options in there under the customer support, customer success bucket.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Returnly is really just for return automation. We outsource our customer support team. So we have them using Excelco Help Desk to essentially all the orders from Skubana from all our different channels flow into Help Desk. And now our customer support team has all the eyes, all the track information, all the order information of those customers that contact us. So we outsourced the phone, we outsourced the email. Again, it's still a work in progress. Like it's never amazing. We're always iterating and improving on what we've got going on, so that we can operate at really a peak performance. What else am I doing for customer support? So we've automated that. Yeah, I think that's everything on the customer support side. You just have to make sure we're logging into as least amount of applications as possible. And so Skubana has an app store. So for example, like we're not a best-in-class software to do help desk. So we actually have all those orders going into an email ticketing software like Excelco Fusion to actually process all those tickets. We have canned responses as well, so we don't want to repeat ourselves, so we have these canned responses that we can use, kind of like templates that we can customize and change up. Another thing is like Webgility. Right? So we have an app integration to Webgility, and so we're not great at connecting to QuickBooks. We use our core competency in our app store, best-in-breed applications that allow us to do those connections and make our life a lot easier.
Yep. Excellent point. So without any additional questions from the audience, I want to jump into the last poll question, which is coming up now. It's asking, what are the biggest dangers in using Amazon FBA? Not necessarily what we've been talking about for the last 5 minutes or so, but definitely relatable here. And the options are, of course, that you don't have control. There's an argument to say that there's inefficiency in the shipping and logistics side of things, partly, I'm sure, because of a lack of control. It's pretty clear based on that fee slide that there's expenses that may eat up your revenue. And then, of course, the option for those who are indecisive is all of the above. Chad, what would you say is the biggest danger?
Biggest danger, well, you can't use FBA as multi-channel fulfillment to other off-channel platforms. So if you just build your business around FBA, it's hard now to expand off-channel. I think that's another one that's just not on here. But I think they're all, I mean, expenses are massive, inefficiency with shipping, and you don't have control. I think all of them.
Right on. Well, results are in, and I think you're pretty correct. Obviously, the indecisives take it with all of the above, but specifically the expenses, as we highlighted several times, are a big part of this. I'm glad we didn't talk too much about the inefficiency, because I do believe that Amazon is market leading in their logistics side of things, but there's a big question mark there because you don't actually have control over that. So if they're not optimizing around your process or your customer locations, then there's still some risk there. All right, so that was that poll question, and now we're going to open it up to the audience for anything additional. We have one coming in right now from Babak again, and it says, please touch more on the connection of Skubana and Webgility to explain the micro part more. I'll take the first swag at that, Chad, if you're all
Of course.
right. So we've talked a lot about the operational efficiency of getting orders out the door, understanding from multiple channels, and keeping inventory up to date. The purchase order automation, a lot of what Skubana offers is hugely impactful. But what it doesn't do is, again, that bookkeeping, that accounting side of things where you're translating a raw metric or a raw operational bit of information into something that is meaningful in an accounting way. So what Webgility endeavors to do is pull the data from Skubana, normalize it, and apply a set of rules. So in the sense of automation, the goal here is to make sure that you only have to say something once, like, I want these orders to come in as sales receipts or invoices. You tell us once, and we'll continue to run the process in the background to keep you efficient. But the goal there is to make sure that your accounting system is up to date at a reasonable time frame, and for anybody that's making decisions based on a P&L or an income statement, maybe if you're going out for funding or if you're looking for a loan from a bank, instead of spending several months or even weeks with a full-time person digging through and trying to understand that, we automate a lot of that process based on the data that's in Skubana so that we can get you to those results faster. Would you say that's an accurate perspective?
Spot on.
Right on. So hopefully, Babak, that answers the question. We're definitely open for more. Anybody have additional questions? Oh, here we go. One coming in from Eric is, seems like this entire presentation was on Skubana. Well, Webgility did talk a bit, and we are definitely open to discussing that a bit more later on. Eric, feel free to follow up. We'll reach out as well. We wanted to make sure that we focused a lot on how to automate and outsource the business. So sounds good. All right, and we have a couple other questions coming in. One of them is, let's see here. How often, Chad, this is a good one for you, how often should you reevaluate the FBA arrangement?
I think you need to be reevaluating constantly the FBA arrangement. We certainly have, and also Amazon changed the rules so frequently. For example, they stopped allowing you to ship in just a brown box a couple of months ago. And so now it has to come in an Amazon box. So when those changes happen, you have to be able to really think on your feet, think about, okay, what am I going to do next? How do I position my business? FBA is actually, it's expensive, especially doing multi-channel fulfillment. So what are other ways that you can do to make more money? Maybe build your own outsourced warehouse, which is what I've done. I have an outsourced warehouse, so all the orders from every channel comes in, and we have our outsourced warehouse picking and packing and shipping those items.
Yep, excellent point. So one of the other questions is, what are the key things to keep an eye on that might indicate a change to the FBA arrangement? It sounds like there are frequent and very different changes from Amazon's side and how they approach the FBA arrangement. Are there ways that you get insight on that or you keep up to date?
Like automating is a big part of it. Right? And if we want to talk about Webgility, right, there's your net revenue and your gross revenue and everything in between it that gets reconciled by Webgility. But knowing about your expenses is a big piece of it. And especially in the fourth quarter, Amazon changes their fees, their storage fees, their long-term storage fees, to incentivize you to just have the right amount of inventory there. So they charge you more money for it. So just constantly thinking about those things. And if you're working in your business and not on it, you don't have the balance and the flexibility and the mindfulness to actually think about what are ways I can be changing my business and my life. Yep.
So always keeping an eye out to the horizon sounds like the best plan. Mm-hmm. One question specific to Skubana, coming from BC, asking really what's the right size of business or level of complexity where you find Skubana becomes most important?
Well, I think the first piece is really you have to build a foundation. So if you're just an Amazon seller and you're just using Seller Central or using an Amazon-only tool, that pigeonholes you and that creates a glass ceiling for you to break through it. So setting up your business with the right foundation, I think, is number one. Whether or not you use Skubana or not, right, you need to build your business around the right foundation. Secondly, Skubana is really built for a high volume seller. Someone who's doing a lot of transactions, maybe they have a lot of complexities, maybe they have their own warehouse, and they have FBA. Once you start selling multi-channel, and start having a lot of SKUs, even if you're just on Amazon, you still need to know, like, when am I going to run out of stock? When do I need to order more? What's my profitability? Skubana takes care of all that. And this is not a Skubana pitch. I'm just telling you what Skubana does.
Yep. That I would actually argue is the same perspective for Webgility. We will make a single channel seller more efficient and definitely take care of that, but really where the pain point gets unbearable is when you're on multiple channels as you're dealing with the inventory up on all those different locations and then trying to reconcile different fees, different order types, and that data just becomes a mess very, very quickly.
Yep.
Awesome. Let's see, we also have a question specifically about how Webgility and Skubana plans are structured, but we can take that offline. Another one that we talked about here a little bit was alternatives to FBA. Sounds like an outsourced warehouse is your ideal choice. Have you seen anything else be effective, Chad?
Well, I think that dropshipping is effectively near dead. The reason why I believe it's near dead is because if you're not FBA, you're not relevant. If you're selling on Amazon and you're not FBA, you're just not getting the exposure that you need. Amazon is part of Amazon's algorithm for getting on top of the rank with their A9 search. So if you're not FBA, you're not relevant, but on other channels, like if you're selling on your own web store, you're selling on Walmart or Jet, you can't use FBA. So the only other substitute is building your own warehouse, which I don't suggest, or using an outsourced warehouse like I am.
Well, that leads us into the final question before we wrap this up. What would you say is a business factor or several business factors that are uniquely important to track once you become multi-channel?
Okay, that's a heavy question. I think that once you start selling multi-channel, you need to make sure, I mean, we're tracking top-line revenue. We're looking at our unit margin per channel for every SKU. We're looking at our net margin and net profit for every channel. So, because every channel is going to have a different price point. The costs associated with fulfilling an order for Walmart are very different from the cost of fulfilling for Amazon, along with, and different fees associated with it as well. And the shipping fees could be vastly different, especially if I'm using FBA.
Got it.
We're very focused on the top line, and we're very focused on we're top line, bottom line oriented.
Yep. That'll help you catch the big issues and narrow down into additional research as needed.
Yeah, the last metric I think is important is inventory. How efficient are you with your inventory? Also, how efficient are you with your staff? So when I go to a cocktail party and someone says, "Hey, Chad, how many employees do you have now?" And I say, "Oh, I only have 2 employees." They're like, "Oh, you must be small." So we look at the revenue per employee ratio, and start looking at your own revenue per employee ratio and comparing it to other companies like Amazon. Look at Amazon's revenue per employee ratio and figure out what the sweet spot is for your own business.
That makes total sense. All right, so with that, we want to close before the top of the hour. Chad, it's been great. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing all this wisdom.
Thank you so much. Glad to do it collaboratively.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining. Again, we'll follow up with the recording of this, and of course, if you need more information, go to webgility.com or skubana.com for information on our offerings. Thank you very much.